Hi, everybody. Welcome to our 7th Scranton isolation episodes. This is how we're using this series to kind of maintain connections, to nurture our extended musical community. And it's not just our student musicians and our campus community, but our alumni, our audiences, our donors, our faculty and staff, and everybody who is so supportive and is so much a part of the music making and performance music at the University of Scranton. We're very excited tonight to have the man with us who has been our most frequent and unquestionably our most beloved guest artist. But first, I would like to introduce to you our student hosts, because our students, their commitment, their preparation, their enthusiasm, their musicality is how we get guest artists to want to just keep coming back. So, Nicole, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Nicole Schaefer. I'm a graduating senior history and philosophy double major. I will be attending the Catholic University of America's Law School next fall. I've been singing in the alto section of the performance choir for the past 4 years, and I'm very honored to have the opportunity to do this info session with Wycliffe Gordon today. As my first year at Scranton, I had the opportunity to do a performance in choir with him for the university's family weekend. So this is very exciting.
And what was that experience like?
It was great. We only did 2 songs, I believe, in the beginning, but it was a really cool opportunity to be able to perform with him. And then afterwards, we got to watch his performance as well. So that was really great. And I appreciate that.
Thanks, Nicole. Nicole will be graduating, so feel free in the comments, Facebook viewers, to send her your congratulations, because this class of 2020, it's an atypical graduation celebration. So any way you can add to that, please do. Abigail.
Hi, I'm Abigail Buck, and I attend the university, and I play in our trombone in our concert band, jazz band, and trombone ensemble. And when I'm not doing one of those things, I am a biology major and Spanish minor. And I think my first experience with Wycliffe was probably the first concert I ever saw at Scranton, and he was performing with, I believe, the choir, and he sang "What a Wonderful World," and I was hooked from then.
Hooked. I used to make fun of his singing, and now he's one of the greatest singers I know. I used to, when he first started singing, like 2020, remember this? I used to stand in the back of the hall yelling, "Keep your day job!" Now he's better than Sinatra. Don't I feel like a fool? And now, and now I have the pleasure, I don't even know where to start introducing this guy. I don't know if, local people, if you saw, my Happenings magazine interview in March, they asked me who is my musical hero. And my answer was that it was Wycliffe Gordon. He ties with only my son for creating joy in my heart when he makes music. Him, my son, and Louis Armstrong, in the darkest of days, the sound of them playing their instruments lifts me up. I could go on and on about all the things he's done, the places he's been. They should just not let other people enter all these competitions, Jazz Journalist and Critics' Choice and Downbeat Awards for Best Trombone, because he wins them every year. He's got like a gazillion CDs out there. He has performed with everybody from Wynton Marsalis to Paul Simon. Every single sound I have ever heard come out of him, as much as many decades ago I busted him about his voice. Every sound that has come out of him, regardless of the instrument or voice that it is on, has been something that speaks of it touches something deeply and profoundly human about our shared life experience. And so when he told me his topic today was going to be to talk about, basically how music does cross bridges in every way possible, I thought of the Joseph Campbell perennial philosophy theory that says all human beings throughout time, throughout geography, have all had the same basic concerns: love, heartache, passion, and nobody expresses all of that through an instrument or voice better than. Please join us in welcoming, from the class of University of Scranton, class of 2006, Dr. Wycliffe Gordon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks for having me. I'm very honored to be asked to be on this panel or this event, and just to share with you something other than just, music and chord changes and tunes and pedagogy and that type of thing. When Ms. Boga called me about doing this, she said, well, talk about what you want to talk about. And people don't necessarily, we don't want to have like a trombone master class or music master class. And that's something that's always been on my mind since the beginning of my career as a professional musician, and that just was a part of my life growing up, just, here in America, here down south. And I said I wanted to speak about my experience when I first joined Winston's band in 1989, the summer of 89. And those moments were very profound, from the time I met him in February of 1987 till I did my first gig, June 6, 1989 in Charleston, South Carolina. And the first time I got a chance to go to Europe. So I've been very, very, very blessed to make my living playing music or doing something that I love. And because of it, I've gotten a chance to see many great things. I've gotten a chance to travel to many great places. And I wanted just to share with you some of those things that have influenced me and inspired me as a musician and also as a person. And one of those things was, I remember going to Germany, my first time going to Europe, 1989. We were in Europe, and we were in Berlin. And that part of the year, I think it was October, the wall that separated East Berlin from West Berlin still stood. And we had a day off, so I went to Checkpoint Charlie, one of the checkpoints, just to, check out the city and just get some of the history. And I was really flabbergasted by, what I saw in the museum, because Checkpoint Charlie, it was there at the wall still stood. And then you got a chance to see films and read a little bit about the history. And it was just really, it was kind of hard to see that, wow, man, people and how we treat people and how we deal with people. And that day, on that part of the tour, we were there for 4 or 5 days. So we had a couple of days, and one profound moment that I remember, moments that came back to me years later, as I started teaching and traveling more around the United States and the world. I was in the lobby of the hotel. We had a day off, and we're there in a hotel's a busy section of town in Berlin. And as I stood in the lobby, the folks that they when they looked at me, if looks could kill, I wouldn't be here to speak to you now. It just seemed as though they didn't want me there, like they didn't want me to exist. And I was like, wow, and I was just, walking around. Now, coming from America and knowing some of America's history that's not so great, I'm, in my mind, I'm thinking about what I've been exposed to and what I know. So I thought they were looking at me because my skin was brown. I later come to find out, as we went to France, as we went to Italy, as we went to Spain, that there was something going on between America and the relations in the United Kingdom and the other countries in Europe, that, we weren't cool with the folks over there at the time. Because I was then in the French cafe with Reginald Ville. We're having a coffee, and folks were looking at us like we were aliens. And I said, wow, man, this is kind of crazy. And I was really excited because it's my first time leaving the country, and I'm getting a chance to travel and see some of the beautiful places, the Sistine Chapel, going to Rome, and it seemed.
And how old were you, Wycliffe? How old were you?
I was 22 or 23 years old. And so that just kind of it stuck in my mind. And then as I began to travel more and to play more and learn more about music and follow behind one of my great I say idols in music. One of my great inspirations, Mr. Louis Armstrong. It brought me to a moment where I got a chance to see and to witness his work as a musician. I loved his music, but then I got to know him as a humanitarian. And then this got me to thinking about, some of the things that I'd experienced. And there's a clip of Louis Armstrong from 1956 or 1957. He was on a State Department tour as an ambassador from the United States, going to do what he did, bring goodwill to people. And he's playing in Ghana, and there's 100,000 people at the concert. And I do this tune by Fats Waller that Louis Armstrong does. Well, many people have done it, but it's called Black and Blue. But Louis Armstrong, he changed, it's originally a song, a torch song about, someone pining behind her man. And Louis Armstrong changed the verses a little bit, and it became a protest song about racism in the United States in the mid to late 50s. So as I watched this clip, and as it goes, as I really started to get into the music of Louis Armstrong, well, the music, I had gotten bitten by that bug from age 14. But then to learn that those 100,000 people, there's 50,000 people on each side, just separated by rope, like 5 feet. And just weeks before, it's 2 nations in Africa at war. And they called a truce to attend this concert. And I began to think to myself, I said, man, that's wow. It says something about the power of this music, about the power of music, and the power of the music, particularly of Louis Armstrong during that time. Fast forward, now I'm teaching. I always love to do master classes, and I'm teaching, and I'm getting a chance to interact with students. And I don't know, I keep thinking about it. My life has just really been great because I love what it is that I do, and because of it, I've gotten exposed to a lot of things. So I'm talking with some students at a master class, and then I think back to that time that I was in Germany, and I've been fortunate to meet Cheryl Boger, the students here at Scranton. When Abigail was talking, I was like, wow. She was there when I was there, and I keep forgetting. Cheryl brings me there every year. And then Nicole, I was like, wow. And then I began to think about the people that had a great influence and inspiration for me, like Britt Woodman, guys that played with Duke Ellington, Al Gray, who played with Count Basie and meeting Snooky Young, and some of the great masters that are still living. But then thinking about the friendships that I forged just through traveling and getting the opportunity to play music. And then having a great friend like Cheryl Bogan, she didn't tell me to say this. Yes, she did used to pick at me about my singing and my conducting. She used to pick at me about my baton when I conducted my first piece. You're talking, but you're muted. Stay that way.
Oh, don't you wish you had control of that button? Ladies, the first time he came to conduct the band, he had only conducted jazz groups, and he's conducting, a 90-piece concert band. He brought a baton that was like a tree limb. I don't know if he felt safer because it was bigger. He gave one downbeat and the flutes were almost hurt. I had to confiscate the baton. Okay, finish your story. Sorry, I couldn't let that go by.
Okay, no, it's okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure they saw my beats. Anyway, there are funny stories. She didn't tell you about when she first brought me to Scranton that, and this is why we're so close. She almost killed me. I almost died. She picked me up from a rehearsal in Jazz at Lincoln Center, and we're going down on I-80 or somewhere, and it's raining, and we had a spin out and a blowout, and everything was Miss Bogle, Mr. Gordon, and there was another one of the students, and the jazz band was setting up to rehearse for when we got back. It was a great night. We became close because when you're with someone and you almost lose your life, and you survive it, you become very close or you go very far apart.
I will point out that if that had happened going 80 miles an hour on a curve, on a slanted roadway, and a tire blew out and anybody else was driving, we wouldn't be here talking about it. I am a great driver, and I saved your life that night. That's the way I see it.
You did. I'm impressed. So fast forward. I want to talk about Bogle for a minute because in all my travels with Winton, the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra, I did get a chance to meet her. She almost killed me. but I'm still here. But it was a great relationship, and I've had a great relationship with the University of Scranton because she gave me my first opportunity to compose and orchestrate for groups that I'd never done it for before, for the concert band, which I played in, for choirs, which I've heard, and it's just been great. And this is something that I want to say about those experiences, tying it back to Germany and going towards a film score that I got an opportunity to do. And I think it's because of that I always wanted to write and to compose. And I got a chance to do my first film score, Jazz at Lincoln Center, in 1999, was celebrating the centennial of the birth of Paul Robeson. And I got a chance, they wanted to do a collaboration with the New York Film Society. And we did Body and Soul. And I was I felt really good about that because I had to address being a jazz musician, but also there were scenes in that movie that dealt with, being in the church and in my upbringing in the South. The way of thinking during that time, and probably still so today, there's sacred music and there's secular music. Sacred music is God's music, then the secular music is the devil's music. And I said, wow, and it was really difficult for me, even as a young musician, because I was like, if this is the devil's music, then the devil has some pretty nice music and I like it. So anyway, I got an opportunity to do that. Then the opportunity came to deal with this film called Within Our Gates. And I'd heard about the film, and this is how this kind of ties to my experience in Germany. And I'll tell you what happened in Germany, then I'll tell you about this film. After that second day, the third day, we had a performance. And some of the same people, because we were staying in a square, they worked in the hotel, they worked in the cafes on the street. There may have been some vendors on the street. They were at our concert. And I looked down when we were playing, about on our third song, and the folks that had a scowl on their faces, they were now smiling. The folks that looked at me like they didn't want me to exist, they were now dancing and they were singing to the music we were playing. And I didn't really think anything of it, but I was just, at that moment, I was like, wow. So about 20 years later, I'm teaching a class and I said, wow, thinking about Louis Armstrong, I said, man, what, there's something that's powerful about music. And music can tell stories and music can help us to celebrate our shared humanity. The likenesses that we have, but not to condone one for their differences, but to celebrate the differences. That's the beauty. That's the beauty about being a human being. So I got a chance to do this film score, and someone at the Lucas Theater in Savannah said, "Well, we did Body and Soul there in 2005." They said, "Have you seen the film Within Our Gates?" I said, "No, I heard about it." And if you all don't know about Within Our Gates, in film schools, when they study, they deal with historical content. And one of the historical films that they would watch was called D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation. It was considered a masterpiece. It was shown at the White House, and it was a big deal, a big to-do. But it didn't show everyone in a great light. And it celebrated the rise of the Ku Klux Klan, basically. So, and this was in 1915. So when I got a chance to do this film, someone sent me the film and I watched it. I said, hey, wow. The second time. Then the third time, I said, yes, I would love to do it. And a group in New York called me, the group down in Savannah, SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design. They couldn't pull it off for some reason. Then someone called me in New York, said, we're writing a grant. Is there anything you would like to do? I said, well, I've been talking to someone about doing this movie. I'd like to write another film score. They got the money. We did it. Premiered 2011, August 26th. And when we played the music when we performed the film, some folks got up and left. And if you don't know about this film, it's Oscar Michaud's film. It was his response, if you will, to D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation, because it showed people in a very not so good light, and particularly African Americans, Black folks in America. And what Oscar Michaud did was he showed folks of all races and all ethnicities in their glory, and it just pretty much showed the truth. And it was like, we've only performed it 4 times. The 4th time being in Augusta earlier this year. We did it twice in New York, once at Columbia, once at the Symphony Space on 95th Street, once in Savannah at the Savannah Music Festival. And when we performed it this time, I always try to have a little bit of a dialogue with the folks after the film, because you don't see anything, you don't see a hanging, but it's implied. And it's like, this was a part of American history. And in the first performance in New York, some folks, they got up and they walked out. When we did the second performance, another couple got up and they walked out. And I think during that scene, and this was he finished the film in 1990, published it in 1920, and they didn't have, ratings. So what I do is I talk a little bit about the film before we show it, say it's going to be some graphic content, but it was dealing with American history and in light of all that has happened. So from that moment in Germany, when I thought the people, they didn't like me, I thought it was because of the color of my skin, but it had to do with me simply being American. But I'm like, when we started playing music, we all became human, which is what we are at the core. And then when you asked me about coming up with the name, I said, I want to deal with common denominators with folks. Doesn't matter where you're from, what you look like. Like you said in the beginning of this conversation, we all have the same basic needs, wants, and the last thing I'll say about the film is still enlightening, because I was really flabbergasted at Oscar Michaud's artistry for having the gumption to just put it on film. And it's an artistic outlet for him to tell a story through his eyes, and that's what they always are. And what I never got, we played in Savannah, and for the Savannah Music Festival, and a family got up and left. And for me, it's very interesting that we can see films. I'll watch Transformers or something, and before the credits get done rolling, you're cutting off a head and boom, and everything's blowing up, and even though they're cars. I mean, if you think about any action film, heads are flying off, blood, guts everywhere. But you tell a little bit of the truth about how we as humans have been not so good to each other, and it just kind of touches close to home. So I'm thankful that I got a chance to see that, and even when I was in the midst of it, I didn't realize it, but now, moving forward, getting a chance to meet the students at University of Scranton, getting a chance to meet Cheryl, learning the music of Louis Armstrong, but then really getting into who he was as a humanitarian. Louis Armstrong, he loved everybody, and he thought that everybody should have a fair shake, and that's what he wanted. And Duke Ellington said, gave him one of the greatest compliments one could give to another. And he said, Louis Armstrong came from nothing. He gained everything, and he didn't hurt anyone along the way. And so that's kind of my story, and I'm happy to answer questions about any of those things. Matter of fact, the last performance on February 21st, when we did Within Our Gates, normally that talk is about 15 to 20 minutes every time we've done it. This went on for about an hour, and it was very eye-opening that in 1919 and 2020, that folks still have issues. We had people that were concerned about the stereotypes on the film. It's like stereotypes, the negative stereotypes. I said stereotypes only exist because things that are reality. I mean, and I said to the young lady, I said, well, I don't know about you, but everybody on that film, they presented some kind of a stereotype. The guy that had no education, that was trying to educate his kids, but he couldn't he didn't have the money to pay the school to send them to the school because, the boll weevils ate up his crop and they took his mules, or they took his means of even, making any money. He wasn't educated, but he wanted to educate his kids. That was a stereotype. There was the lady that wanted to not give any money so that the African American kids can be educated. And then there was a philanthropist, another lady from up north, who said, "Oh, I wouldn't give them $5,000. Just give the money to the preacher." And after she thought about it, she said, "I'm not going to give $5,000. I'm going to give $50,000." And the thing is, that's a stereotypical person. So there's good on all sides. And my hope is that at some point, and even especially now, we can find those common denominators and exist in a world where, when I saw in Germany as a 22, 23-year-old, people go from being like, monsters to, and now they're singing. It makes me think that, wow, whenever there's a war that breaks out, just get a big boom box and just drop it out there and let them listen to the music. And maybe they'll smile, and maybe they'll dance, and maybe they'll realize that all of you, the people you're hating, the people you're trying to kill, the people you're talking about, they're just like you. And they want the same things you want. They need the same things that you need. And I think that's kind of that's what I wanted to deal with. It's on my mind all the time. I'm here in Georgia, and we all know what's going on. CNN stays on in 3 televisions, and sometimes I just turn the sound off, or I have to watch Law and Order or something. I'm like, oh man, I had enough. But last thing I'll say about this, because the hard thing in that film was dealing with the lynching or the killing of a whole family. It was wrong, and we were in Augusta, and someone said, well, they made the comment, because, there were lots of people that had come out, and they said, well, the last lynching on record between here and Washington, Georgia, somewhere, he said, was in 1968. And we had gone on for about 45 minutes. And what I wanted to say, I thought about it after the fact, and I wanted to say to him, I said, the last time I got a speeding ticket was about 3 or 4 years ago, but I was speeding last week. So anyway, I don't want to get dark, but those truths are, I think once we dig into those, then we can let down some of the things that are barriers. I've seen it happen in music, between the jazz musicians and the classical musicians, the legit musicians versus what Clark Terry would say, we must be the illegitimate musicians. And I've seen it happen when we perform with the orchestras around the world, New York Philharmonic, Chicago, the barriers that come down with music. And that's the thing. One thing that I'm so happy about that, because I used to want to play sports, but I don't think I would have it any other way. A lot of people wake up wanting to, they look forward to vacation. I look forward to going to work. If I'm teaching, if I'm getting a chance to interact, if I'm performing, if I'm writing, I'm composing, I'm arranging, I look forward to going to work. Vacation for me is kind of like work, and that's not to knock vacations. They're great. But when you have something that you love to do and you get the opportunity to do it all the time, and that's what my life has been. And now that we're in this COVID age where I can't be there in Scranton, and that we have to talk on via Zoom and Facebook Live, it's been another great thing for me, because I feel like when people look for good things, or when they want good things, when they give good things come to them. And I think that good is going to come out of this. Folks have called me, my friends said, man, you're home, you must be getting cabin fever. I said, absolutely not. All this music that's behind me, I've seen, the first piece that I wrote for University of Scranton, and I just started Boga, I wouldn't say single-handedly, but you're largely responsible for me to continue to want to write for choirs and, even concert band. I don't get a chance to do it because I don't perform in those circles a lot, but I've been met with opposition with folks even in the classical world in doing that because I'm a jazz musician. I like to think of myself as a musician. Yeah, I've been fortunate to make my career playing jazz, but I want to say, even though you almost killed me, thank you for...
I saved your life. Get it straight. I saved your life.
Yes, okay. Oh, you almost killed me and you saved my life. But thanks for giving me the opportunity to write because I had been, long after you, I've been in situations where I was kind of opposed to do it. So, well, we don't have any money. I said, I don't want any money. Now I just want to write the piece just to show you that I can write for orchestra and choir. And it was great. It was only performed once, but if I can help it, I plan to have that music available where we can do it again because I've seen what music can do for people. From Germany to within our gates, music is I think it's a common denominator. It goes across, party lines, and I don't get into politics. I wouldn't be good at it. I just like to treat people well, and I like to see people treated well. And if I can do that with my music, amen and hallelujah. So,
okay. So one of the things that before I connect that in, I would like to tell you how impressed I am by the organization of that music behind you, because sometimes that's not what I see. And I am really impressed with that. And I want to just congratulate whoever did that for you or forced you to do that by threat. But to go back, as you're talking about this, one of the ways that you have always, totally apart from musical, but you have an impact on everybody at Scranton when you come, and you'll see it as soon as I say it. You'll see it in their faces, and on me in particular. I'm the first one to say, I'll get mad, man. I'll get mad. I'll go off. You are just you always look for the best in any person or situation. You can start working with a student or a group, and the first thing you'll always find is what's right about it. Somebody could just be the biggest, I'm trying to watch my language here because it's a family broadcast, but just somebody who's the biggest jerk and does something terrible, and I'll be ready to just go off, and you'll just say, oh, they're doing the best they can. And so this ability to look for the best in any given person or situation is something that impacts, I think, everybody you ever work with, because there's a joy in the process with you. There's a joy in the good. There's a joy in the errors. There's a joy in the process that is what creates the joy of the product. I mean, can either of you add something to that? Because I'm not very articulate about Abby said to me one time, I don't think anything can ever, or she said with the band was like, we're never going to get this, the Hello Pops last year. And I remember her saying, because the guitar player, Joe Laskowski, who's probably watching, was like, you can't do this. There's 8 trumpets. We can't do this. We're never going to get this. It's going to be a mess. And Abby just said, you don't understand. Nothing can go wrong when Wycliffe's here, right? And so you bring this philosophy with you, which is why I was so thrilled when you said that's what you wanted to talk about.
Oh, thank you. And thank you guys. I mean, why do anything other than that? There's one thing I don't get. We can always find something that's different, and we can, I hear comedians make fun of the things about folks that are funny, and yes, they're funny, but those are the great things about what makes people. And why would you look for anything other than the best in someone? I mean, why would you want anything other than that? and music is one way, where that is exemplified. Hey, just do the best you can. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to have fun doing it. And hey, and you want to do it better tomorrow, but hey, today is today. And why do anything other than that? And I'm not sure. It still baffles me when that happens, because that happens in our profession. It happens in every profession. And it's like, and yeah, sometimes there are a couple of times I almost got caught up. And someone said, no, don't get your hands in the dirt. I'm like, no, I want to get dirty. I don't, they're talking. I'm like, come with your horn, pick the tune, pick the tempo, pick the key. Let's go, let's get at it. And that never happened. But you know what? This particular person then called me and spoke to me. I think I'd gotten a downbeat award or something. And I looked at my phone and I started pinching myself. I said, okay, someone's trying to, punk me or something. And I said, wow. And it's amazing. I think that if you give people enough time, things can turn around, but they have to want to. And I think at the heart of every individual, or at the core of every individual, there's good, because this behavior, when you're kids, you don't know that mess. I think about what's happening down here in Georgia. We had, we're dealing with COVID right now, but what happened with Ahmaud Arbery, not to shed a dark light on anything, but going back to Within Our Gates and that performance, someone said the last lynching happened in 1968. I'm like, no, lynchings are still going on. They're just not using ropes anymore. It's just like, and it's like, why? Because every time I see that, I'm like, that's another human being. That's another person that you can make this life great with. And it's, so anyway, but thank you guys for saying that. I know when I come to Scranton, I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to eat good. And, Ms. Boger's going to catch me up on everything that happened since the last time I had been there. And it's just a wonderful time. And I can be tired and sleepy. And when I used to drive back to New York, I said, I don't anymore. I get a hotel room. I'm going to stay because we're going to talk. We're going to do the concert. We're going to talk. And it's great. And if you get the opportunity, if you're fortunate enough, you want to have a friend like that. Because, you don't have, there's not too many. A lot of people, they come around, and people in general are good, but sometimes they have an agenda. But when things aren't good and things are, a little tough, like we're all going through a tough time right now, you need a real friend. A friend is your friend, not when things are good, just when the sun's shining. They're your friend when it's raining, when it's muddy, when it's stormy. And I can honestly say that about my friend Cheryl Boger, even though she almost killed me when she first met me.
Even though the reason I saved his life is because he is my brother from another mother. One of our trumpet players, Andy Butner, said you can 100% hear the absolute love that Wycliffe puts into the music he plays. And Wayne Smith says everybody should be lucky enough to live their life with as much love and joy in their heart as Wycliffe has. Ladies, I know you have some questions on the topic, yes? Let's go. Do it. Who's going first? Jump in. Just jump in. Just unmute.
I didn't have a question, but I was going to comment, which was funny that you brought up Hello Pops, because that's what came to my mind when he's been talking about wanting people to feel love and happiness through music. Was part of that piece is that we have to sing, and I strongly dislike singing. And so he's like, oh, no, you guys got to be louder. Like, you can do it. It's fine. So even though I went in and being like, oh, I got to sing this piece in front of other people, it was just a great experience because he was like, no, you guys can do it. Like, we're going to do it all together and it's going to be great. So I really enjoyed that experience.
Oh, thank you. Well, that was, oh man, Hello Pops. And I appreciate it. I wasn't trying to create a choir. It's like the musicians from New Orleans when they're in the parade. They're having a good time. And, your voice, the power and the pathos of your voice, just being a part of hello, hello, hello. It's just like, hey, hello, pops. It was, it's beautiful. I wasn't looking for, those things that, diction here, but just if you could just sing close to the pitch, it want to sound like the I can only relate to growing up in church. You had the choir in my church down south. They rehearse, they sing, they practice singing. But when you have one of those congregational hymns, and you're sitting out in the congregation and everybody's singing, but they're not always singing on pitch. And it's not annoying, but it is so powerful because the whole room has come together. And I think that's kind of, what I wanted to create. But that's like, no, and every time I do that, because jazz musicians or instrumentalists, they don't want to sing. I'm like, the most beautiful thing that you have is your voice. And it's the thing that distinguishes you when nothing else can. I mean, without my looking at you, if I, learn who you are, but your voice is very distinguishable. And it's the one thing I teach all the time now, sing it first. If you can sing it, you can play it. And if I could do anything differently in my career, I'd sing from day one. I used to say the same thing, sing, schming. I'm a trombone player, and I can learn the trumpet parts, and but once I started, not singing like a singer, but singing to work on techniques, I'm like, wow, it's amazing. So I always, and again, thanks to Cheryl Bogle, my first choral piece, I started putting it in my big band pieces. Sing, get the band to sing, because a lot of times you expect that of a choir, not a band, but then when you sing and it sounds good, it's like, whoa. So thank you for doing it.
It's pretty funny. I always think that I should record the rehearsals trying to get the jazz band, because like you come and they're like, okay, Wycliffe Gordon's here, and everybody becomes Pavarotti, and they're all just like, yes, hello, 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 right? The rehearsals, everybody's looking at their feet, they're pretending. As soon as the part to sing comes up, the bass player Ryan was like trying to go, pretend he had to go to the bathroom, somebody's valve was stuck. It was like, it was awful. And then you come and they act like, so of course he's coming in, Nicole, because you're in choir, you didn't witness this. And we're going up to the concert hall and I'm saying to them, listen, I tried, but they aren't singing. They're my jazz band. They're acting, they're moving their mouth as if I'm being fooled by this. And so I warned him, he's all ready for it. We get up to the concert hall, we have 4-part harmony ringing out.
Mm-hmm.
Nicole, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. So you've obviously had the opportunity to teach many classes and work with lots of students. And I was wondering, what is like the main lesson that you hope to impart on your students in these sessions? If they could walk away with one thing, what would you want them to walk away with?
That is a great question. And that answer has evolved over the years, but at the end of the day, you should do something that you love to do. And, if you're going to play music, if you're going to teach music, if you're going to write music, if you're going to be a publisher, make sure you're doing something that you love to do, that, you don't wake up and say, got to get up and go to work again today. Now, I do that about getting on airplanes, but I'm going to do the work that I love to do. So I try to impart on students, if you hadn't found what you love to do, and and you don't have to force it, because I deal with it. It reminds me of things I deal with parents sometimes, and that depends on the age of the students. If it's a graduating senior from high school or college, it's one thing, but sometimes with the younger kids, I went down to Florida once and a parent picked me up from the airport and she said, my son plays the saxophone and he loves playing the saxophone more than anything. He just saxophone all the time. I said, oh, great. I said, junior, seniors. Yeah, getting ready to go to college. I said, well, he's going to be a music major. She said, well, he wants to be, but I want him to do something that's, the music business is hard. And she said she wanted them maybe to consider something, have that as something to fall back on. And I tell people that if you have something to fall back on 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to fall back. So why not just do it in the first place? And so if you find something that you love to do, like you don't have to tell me to get up and write music or play a trombone or sit down to a piano. I'm going to do that as soon as I'm singing, as soon as I become conscious. I may be riding in your car. I may be doing, I'm doing the fingering because I can hide that. And
you do that all the time. The only 2 people I ever met, my husband and I, one night he was here and Joseph was home, and they're like in 2 different parts of the house fast asleep, and they're both singing in their sleep. We were like, what's that sound? Did somebody leave out a TV? Did somebody leave out a radio? They're both fast asleep. Joseph's in his room, Wycliffe's on the couch in the living room, and they're singing. And the amazing part is they were fast asleep and they were singing in the same key. Like, what the hell is that?
Hey, there's something that's amazing about music, and I don't want to get all, the philosophical, but there is something to that. And I'll do this because I can conceal that like down by my leg if I'm in the car, if I'm walking. Because if I walk around doing this, I'll play trombone and it'll go. If I do that, and people see me walking, they'll say he might have gotten out. You may want to call someone. But anyway, it's it's just a part of my being, and I'm always singing. And I would tell, as much as I love music, and I can see my love for people through that, I would tell folks to find something that you love doing. And a lot of times people already know what that is, and unfortunately you get guidance from people sometimes that have an agenda, and I would never say not to listen to your parents, but I did encourage a parent. I said to her, you want him to do something else? She said, yeah, say like a steady job. I said, didn't you tell me he loves doing that more than anything else? I said, why would you want him to do anything other than that? And, I have people ask me all the time, what's the formula to making it? There's no formula. You prepare just like you all are preparing. And your majors, I think, Nicole, you're graduating, you spent 4, maybe 5 or 6 years, I'm not sure, preparing, and that's what you do. So you do the same thing. The only thing about music, a lot of the kids that are playing music, they start in elementary or middle school. A lot of students, they start thinking about what they want to do in college, maybe 10th, maybe 11th grade. But if you've been playing since the 4th, 5th, or the 6th grade, you've been doing it for a while. I'm like, I was just fortunate because I didn't want to do sports, but I think I was 13 when I said, I want to do music, and I'm
going to jump in here because we have a Facebook question that ties right into something that I wanted you to tell Nick and Abby about. The Facebook question said, could you talk about what got you started in music? Who gave you the opportunity? And I wanted you to tell them a little bit about, because I see that we have a lot of really committed music educators that are watching on the Facebook feed. Tell us about Harkness Butler.
Harkness Butler was my high school band director. My start in music was I was introduced to music by my father, who played piano. He studied classical piano, and he taught piano lessons, and he tried to get us to take piano lessons when I was 5 or 6, but we grew up in the country. So if we had the piano going, doom, 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 and then between you, hey, throw the ball. It's like, 5? I don't want to do that. So I took piano lessons a little later at age 11. Again, with my sister Karen. And then I went to junior high school. Well, my brother went to junior high school, and he got a trombone. He wanted to play trumpet. All the boys want to play trumpet or saxophone or drums. But the band director said, you should play trombone. Well, we're a year apart. He came home one day, and I saw it. I said, I want one. And, I begged until my parents got me one. And I was in junior high school for 1 year. And where Miss Butler comes in was that was the last year of junior high school being 7th and 8th grade. We moved to the middle school, 6, 7, 8, high school, 9 through 12. So I went to junior high school and high school with my older brother. And Mr. Butler was my high school band director. And he was great. And I didn't realize Mr. Butler used to tell me something all the time. Ninth grade, try for the all county band, the 10th district band, 10th grade, all state band, and the all state jazz band, 11th grade, and solo and ensemble. He used to say something to me all the time that just kind of went by. He said, "You can do it, Cliff." Yeah, he used to call me Nose because I was Big Nose. He said, he used to call my sister Karen Little Nose, but a Little Cliff. But he said, "You can do it, you can do it." And I was just like, it's kind of like that guy you see on the movie, "You can do it." He didn't say it like that. But Mr. Butler was and he was always supportive because there's 6 kids at home. So if I made the all-state band, my parents couldn't leave home just to take me to Savannah for the weekend. There's 5 other kids at home. My band director would take me. Mr. Butler would take me. And he'd take me on the trips. And, he was just always supportive. And I didn't think about it. A lot of things you're going to do is they're going to come to you in hindsight. And it was years after I left high school that I appreciated him in high school, but I really got an appreciation for what he would say to me in just that little statement. Try for the McDonald's All-American band, Cliff. You can do it. They choose 2 students from each state, and I made it. And he was, he was just a gem. And I was like, he just told me I can do it. So I never really thought that I could. People say, "You don't do that on a trombone." It's like, well, why not? And so, again, he wouldn't push it in my face, but he always told me that I could do something. So that level of inspiration, sometimes you inspire others, but you're being inspired when you don't know it, and you get it back in hindsight. Like I said about Germany, what music did to those people. They looked like they had hate in their heart and disgust on their face. Now they're smiling, they're singing, they're dancing. It's like, wow, you can do that with music? And so anyway, yeah, but Mr. Butler, he was a gem. We lost him a few years ago. Great band director. We used to pick at him, just like I'm sure students probably pick at Bovey. You always pick at the teachers that are great, especially the artistic people, because he had a slight stammer or stutter, and we used to always joke around with Mr. Butler. But man, he always looked for us to do and be excellent. He didn't beat you up with it. He just said, "You can do it." And that's what he expected. You're muted.
What would you give to have that button?
No, I see you talking and no one can hear.
No. But wouldn't you like to have a mute button on me that you could just go like bing?
I'm still working on it.
Oh, okay.
I've been thinking about it for years.
So, when you were talking, this ties in, Mr. Butler, and also, you talking to the mother about saying, "Oh, I don't know if my son should go into music." One of our recently deceased friends and one of my music education heroes, the late, great Alice Marsalis, said, because I remember saying to him, we were laughing, and I said, my mother's always saying, "Well, but what's Joseph going to have as a backup?" And I would always say to her, if he has something to fall back on, he will. So just leave it alone. There's nothing else he's happy doing. And Ellis said to me, "You tell her that there has never been anybody who hasn't." He said, "You just follow your dream and somehow everything else will follow. If it turns out that isn't your dream, you'll learn that by following your dream. And if it is your dream and you don't follow it, you'll never have another chance." Nicole, I think you have a question from a Facebook viewer.
Yes, I have a question from Andy. So he wants to know, when you play music, do you find most of your inspiration from the score or from yourself?
Um, it's ultimately what I find inspiration from is what's happening like right there at that moment. Doesn't matter if I'm, if it's a prepared piece or a through composed piece, I'm still interacting with the musicians that I'm playing with, whether it's jazz piece or classical piece. If I'm playing with my band, within the first three pieces that are on a concert, I try to read the audience and see who's there and who's moved by what. So we'll play a tune like It Don't Mean a Thing and then go into a tune like Impression. So a swing piece, then a burnout bebop piece, and then something like On the Sunny Side of the Street. So I kind of have, if I had to say it, a formula when I'm performing, unless it's a show like Within These Gates, Within Our Gates. I entitled the soundtrack Within These Gates of Mine or Body and Soul. If it's a show that's scripted already, I stay on script. But then but I'm still interacting with the musicians. There's an element of improvisation in most of the music that we're going to play, even if it's through composed. Matter of fact, a piece like that, I wrote it for Body and Soul, the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra. Everyone in there can improvise. And I said, but we had to, and I wanted their input. Music is only as good as it is to everyone that's playing at the time that it's happening. So I wanted everyone to interact with the film. Say, your solo is your solo. Yes, you have changes, but I want you to watch what's happening on the film, and I want you to tell, from your perspective on these chord changes, that part of the story. But then you have to know what happened before that and then what's coming. So when I'm performing with musicians, that's the thing that is most important to me.
Abigail, I think you've got one, Brett?
Yes, I do. I have one from Allison, and she says, you obviously live your life totally immersed in music. And so her question is, do you have certain music that you like to listen to during the hard times, rough times, everything in between?
No, there's when I was on the road with Winton and we were out, the Wynton Marsalis Septet back in like 93, 94, we were on the road 275, 300 days out of the year. And that's, we play a lot of music, a lot of traveling, a lot of venues. And gospel music for me it's the music that always centered me. I heard the music of Beethoven and Bach and Mozart growing up, and mostly piano music, Schumann and Schubert. That's what my dad played. He had an upright grand piano, and he put speakers. He was like a radio person in the Air Force and ran speakers, and he put a speaker in every room. So we heard classical piano music growing up. Live music was church. It was gospel. He played at several churches in Waynesboro, so we were in church all the time. So when I'm on the road, the thing that kind of kept me centered, I would listen to jazz, but jazz is what I studied. But the music kind of kept me centered. I would listen to gospel music, sometimes classical music. People make the mistake, and when I come to a town and they say, we're going to go out, Wycliffe's going to get a drink, I'm like, sure. And then you go to a bar, and there's a jazz band playing. I'm like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go to work. And I mean, as much as I love music, but sometimes I want to get away from it. If I've been teaching all day and I've been teaching jazz all day, the one thing I want to do is just to be another side of who I am as a human being. Let's just talk. Let's just have a drink. But musically, when I was on the road, I'd be in the back of the bus listening to the Florida Mass Choir, the Georgia Mass Choir, Aretha Franklin with James Cleveland, and the Southern California Community Singers. I would listen to classical trombone music. One of my favorite classical trombonists is Christian Lindbergh. And so I would listen to something other than jazz. And I do have a funk band here in Augusta. We do, cover tunes, but nobody's performing now. Back then that's what it was. But I listen to other things. I like music. So some of the music that's being made now is kind of, I can't keep up, like trap music and some of the other things that are made by people that create music that are not musicians. And I don't have anything against it, but when you try to talk to to a person that hasn't studied the craft of learning music, like learning the pedagogy. So, okay, it's entertaining, but then when they start to talk to you about music, it's like, well, okay, well, if you want to talk about music, that would be you talking to me about music is the equivalent of me going to talk to a neurologist about parts of the brain. I don't know anything about that. This is the right side of my head, but that does left brain stuff. I know, but I'm not gonna do that. So, but gospel music. That's what I would listen to.
And just comments before we take the next question that they have for you. We have comments from 2 alumni that were students here during the time that we premiered the story. One of whom was in the audience and one of whom was in the choir. And I could tell from performing the story 20 years ago how passionately you told stories through your music. Listening to you tonight, it is clear what a great storyteller you are with or without the music. That's Tim Gallen. And Jen Donovan Lund writes, my husband, she was a soprano. Tim was a bass. He was bass with the glasses and he had a beard. Jen was one of the accompanists. Jen Donovan Lund writes, my husband still remembers sitting in the audience for the story. Who else could possibly make a trombone a true character? And as I recall, you did that for 2 or 3 hours.
Mighty long, yeah. You're messing. Hey, you know what though?
It was a great piece. Everybody was riveted. People didn't even want to get up to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, that was
great. It was awesome.
I want to do that with animation, and once I heard it again, matter of fact, I have it right here behind me. My CD just. So yes, Boga did call me out earlier. Yeah, my rooms. There are places in this room. That's why I have my camera up there. That's organized, but it still looks like it normally looks right about here and right about there. But this choral music, Praise Almighty God, was one of the pieces I did there. And when we did the story,
as I journey toward glory,
I want to record that. And again, I thank you. You don't know how much it means to me for you to have me to come there and to compose and take me out of my element or introduce me into another element of my musicianship. That meant the world to me. And so I have the choral music started at University of Scranton. And that story, I talked to an animator. I said, I want to do it. Yes, it was long.
It was awesome.
But I want to do it with animation. I thought about it. And I'm like, oh, wow. I can see it. So tell them thank you for the comments.
Okay. And we, as much as you keep saying thanking us, we have never, you've been here about 30,000 times, and every time we just think it can't be a better experience, and every time it is. I think we have another question from Facebook. Who's got it?
I got it.
Okay.
So one of our Facebook commenters, Matthew, wanted to know more about how Germany, especially under Nazi control, had a complicated relationship with music. So during your visit to Germany, did you notice anything that was unique about the country's relationship with jazz, which was a genre that was banned under the Nazi control?
Well, we played the concert that night. That was, I think, early October of 1989. The people enjoyed the music. The folks that were there, I'm telling you, they staunch what I would, and I don't want to, here comes that word, create what a stereotypical German is. There, I learned a lot about history of Germany and something that I went to just 6 or 7 months ago, that what they have done, and even since then in 1989, the wall came down at the end of 1989. Musically, I just saw people enjoying the music. They were dancing, they were singing, they were having a good time, and we were. And I was accustomed to seeing that, but to see that from people that I saw in that square, that I saw in the lobby of the hotel, that was it was utterly amazing. And so I don't know about musically. I imagine some things have changed, because what I've learned about the country is that recently, within the past years, where they had executions that were taking place. I don't know if you know anything about that. And on the sidewalks where some of the folks were killed, they do now is they have a raised brick with that person's name on it, and it is a way for I don't know if it's the government or some faction of the government to acknowledge, what they did. And again, I talked about it. It's starting in Germany, but when you we went to a jazz festival in Poland and went to Auschwitz-Birkenau. For me, I think I may have been 23, 24, maybe it's just a couple of years later, to see that. And I said, it was, to read about it is one thing, but to see it, it was difficult. So I don't know that the music that we played, I heard about that with the music of Tchaikovsky with Germany and Russia. They didn't want to use flatted thirds or anything that would give the semblance of the blues or anything like that. And I heard about those rules. So I don't know if we had an effect on that. I like to think that we did, if not for any period of time, but that night. And when I think about it even now, I'm like, that's amazing. Louis Armstrong had an audience of 100,000, and he dedicated the tune Black and Blue to the Prime Minister. Blood was just being shed just weeks before, and it's like, and I like to think that it did happen, but if not for a long period of time, that night it did. I did see that.
Ab? Nick, who's next? Who's got the next question rolling up?
Let's see. It looks like we have another one from Facebook, and they asked, "How did you and Boga first meet?"
I'll
let Boga talk.
Yeah, I got that one.
Blood on the Fields concert? No.
Well, no. Winton had sent us tickets for our entire big band for one of the nights of the first run of his Pulitzer Prize winning Blood on the Field.
Yeah.
And we took the band up, and the trombone section, I won't go into details, but at one point they were misbehaving just a little on stage. Not that most people would notice, but we had Jeff Spicer with us, who would not miss a trick, okay? And in the program, it said, Pine Cone, that his nickname was Pine Cone, which has over the years been shortened to Cone. And it was because he was kind of country when he first went on the road with them. All the way home, Spicer chanted for 2.5 hours in the bus, "We want the pine cone, we want the pine." So I called up to Witten's the next day and I said, "Okay, tell me about the Gordon person, because this will blow Spicer's mind." So it was really Jeff Spicer that was the catalyst in this. And so I got his number and I called him up and I said, "Would you come? My trombone section, their heads spun all the way home. Like nobody wanted to eat or sing or sleep or anything. The trombones just like, "We want the pine cone." And so that's how we met. And so I made the arrangements for him to come play with our big band. And I went to pick him up, and there had been a miscommunication about what time his rehearsal ended. And so there was some vibing going on there, not with him or me, but at us. And then we got the blow. So first we thought we were going to be late and the jazz band's going to be waiting on stage. So Frank Torquato was working, the great Frank Torquato at the time. He said, "Don't worry, I'll get the pizza." And then we spin out. And I get a blowout, and I call him again. I said, "I don't know what to do. We're going to be late again." He said, "Don't worry, I'll get them ice cream." So by the time we actually got there and started rehearsal at 11 at night, the band had eaten Chinese food, pizza, hoagies, ice cream, calzones, a family-style pasta meal. Frank just kept feeding them to keep them there. And that's how we met. We met because of Blood on the Fields and We Want the Cone. Another question.
Yeah, so another question is, what was it like to deliver a commencement address without speaking a word? How did you prepare for that?
Only Boga could pull something like that off. It was just, to figure out something to play. It was in 2006 when I received an honorary doctorate, which is something that I never take lightly and I never forget because my friend Cheryl Boga thought enough to put me in the just put me in the pot to be considered for that. And he said, rather than speaking, we're going to do something special this year. And that was good because I'm like, well, man, how am I going to address a school full of, your Jesuits and people that are in, there are no music majors there yet. When I come there, I have some of the greatest fun making music with people that love music and that have, I still say it's amazing how she has made it happen and continues to make it happen where, there are no music majors, but you have an orchestra, wind ensemble, a couple of choirs, ukulele ensemble. And so when the opportunity came, I'm like, yes, why not? That's my language. They may understand what I'm saying. And I had my cap and gown on, and David Oswald, a good friend of mine from New York, from New York, and his band, we got to play When the Saints Go Marching In, and we started down the aisle, and it was, I think, something that had not been done at University of Scranton before, and I loved it. It was great. It was right after, I can tell you when it was. It was in May of 2006, and it was shortly sometime before my birthday on the 29th, after the 20th, because that's when the twins were born. Or maybe it was early June. But
yeah, the twins were a week old.
Yes.
Twins were a week old, so it was like right this weekend it would have been.
Yeah. So it was great. It was a great experience just to be honored in that way. And it meant a lot to me, and it still does. So I love doing that. That's the language I'm most comfortable speaking. And Cheryl's been a good friend, because when I can't think of words, like she asked me for this title, I said, and I texted something, and then she wrote something up in like 3 minutes. She's, I'm going to do this thing. She's like, and I was like, perfect. You're my publicist. And I'm just going to have you to be my publicist. So, the friendship goes, both ways. It's great. It's wonderful. I say it publicly. I say it privately. And I'm very proud of it. So I enjoyed that moment.
Wycliffe, I said we were going to be done, Wycliffe, Abby, Nicole, at 8:15, but this is cruising, and we still have a ton of viewers, and we still have some questions and a little video that Wycliffe made for us as a gift to get to. Is that okay, or do you have to?
No, I'm fine.
You sure?
I'm good.
Okay. Okay. So who's next? Wayne Smith would like to know. Ab, is that yours?
Yes, it is. Mr. Smith says, sometimes when performing, we all experience a moment that gives us chills because it is so special. How often does this happen to you? And can you tell us about a time that has happened to you?
When you're performing and get chills? Several times when I come here. Bola may ask me to play a song like, Danny Boyle, He Looked Me On My Fault. And there's certain songs that I play, like the Lord's Prayer, that when I'm playing, if I think about, I step outside of the music and get into what it means. Again, that lowest common denominator of our humanity. So when I'm playing, I'm the things I've worked out to play on trombone or whatever instrument I'm playing, that's fine. But how am I trying to sing the song, and what does it mean? So Amazing Grace shall always be my song of praise, for it's grace that bought my liberty. So I'm thinking about the words. that I'm playing, or Our Father, and sometimes I play with my eyes closed when I'm playing most of the time. But if I start with my eyes open and I close them, then I'm trying to conceal the fact that I'm getting teary-eyed. As a group, one of the most profound moments in music happened with the Wynton Marsalis Septet. You're playing, and when we're on the road all of that time, every now and then somebody just has like a night, you step off and it's like, wow, man, Wes, you on fire tonight. Todd, Wynton is just, and whatever they play is great. But sometimes we'll step off the stage and say, hey, man, I'm sorry. Forgive me for how I sounded tonight. It's like, what are you talking about? And we've all been there, because it's like you went for something and you didn't get it. You got close to it, but you didn't get it. But then when you do, it's like everybody will and the band will know it. But because we're on the road that much and you're in a different city, it's just another concert for everyone else. Then the time would come when it would happen with the whole band. Everybody's at the height of improvisation, musicality, and everything in your creative God-given will and power. You step off, and the whole band just, you step off and we're trying something you hadn't tried before, and it feels like your feet are not touching the ground. That would happen once, maybe twice a year. But when you feel that, it's like you always want to get back to that feeling in music. And if you can create that with other people, man, I can't imagine a high that can be higher than that. And not to talk about, getting high, but that's all I can say. It's like we're levitating, and most of the time those concerts were never recorded. And we get on the bus, either to go to the next city that night, or we get up that next morning. The conversation would be, we look at each other and say, man, it happened again last night. And, those moments in music, we talk about mystical things, but, it's happened. We had a jam session and somebody starts to play too long, and the way you get the people to stop playing, you play a background. When that background goes by twice on a blues, that means time to stop, let someone else play. And Wes and I were in a club in New Orleans. Somebody got long-winded, and my horn was laying on the table next to his. He picked his up. I didn't even look at him. And we went to go play a background and went like, bubble-doo-doo-doo-doo. And then we just turned and looked at each other, and it was like, how do we think of the same thing to play? We just looked at each other and laughed. It was like, hey, man, there's some other stuff going on. But when you're dealing with, when you're creating music on that level, and when you can convey that to people, there's nothing more satisfying than that. So,
and I remember vividly one of the times that happened with the jazz. Well, at the time, Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra. You were here, and your son Thomas was just a baby, and he was here with you. And there was a concert somewhere between here and Philadelphia. And again, we got comps for the whole jazz band from somebody, an alum bought them for us as a gift. And so, Father coughed up for the bus, and off we went with him and the baby, except it was a massive snowstorm. Do you remember this? Mm-hmm. The band had already gotten there, so it had been a benefit. They were not going to cancel it. It was basically our bus, little Thomas, who was just moving, the feet were just moving, okay? Mm-hmm. And Joseph was, however old, Joseph was still, he wasn't playing the trumpet yet. He was still little. And about 15 people in this whole big place. And that was the night, just something about 3/4 of the way through, the magic happened. They played 11 encores. Mm-hmm. Like it just, nobody wanted to stop playing. And the snow, and I'm thinking like, what? Like I'm responsible for these kids. How are we going to get this bus home? And nobody wanted to stop playing. We got another question?
Yeah, yes, we do. So Cheryl, what is your favorite recording of Wycliffe?
April asked that.
Yes, she did.
Actually, my favorite thing of Wycliffe playing I do not have a good recording of because it's on me, but the mix balance is off. My very favorite thing that he'll tell you what it is. What is it?
Toast my bread? No.
Oh, well, I mean, that's a whole other thing. He looks beyond my fault.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I said that.
Beyond my fault. But I mean, I have like 1,000 favorites, April. I have a favorite for all different things. You know, Dream a Little Dream of Me was something that my dad and my grandmother sang to me when I was going to sleep. And like, that's special. Hello Pops, I wake up to every single morning. Hello Pops has started my day as the first thing I hear since the day it came out. I loved Tree by the River. I'm not good with titles, but I can't think of anything that, you know, there was a track on Bone Structure that I just sang the rhythm one. What's the title?
There's a Bone Structure. You going way back.
Yeah. I mean, I love every single thing he's ever put out. But my favorite thing to hear him play ever is He Looked Beyond My Fault. And can I break some personal bounds to go back a question to performances when you get chills?
Sure.
Okay. So he looks very hesitant here, but
no, I'm here.
So in a space of about 18 months, he and I both had massive health challenges. And for me, nobody ever thought I was going to play a saxophone or a clarinet again. And his was something that threatened his playing as well. And the first time, and I will never forget this as long as I live, somebody asked me the two most meaningful times of making music ever. And one of them was this, that the first time we were back on a stage together, and neither of us had really, he didn't know that I was playing again. And I knew that he was playing, but I didn't know he was playing just as brilliantly as he ever had. And we started playing, and we both just started sobbing like hyenas. I don't know, do hyenas sob? And that was one of the most emotional. I mean, I couldn't, like, all the hair on my arms, and I have plenty, was standing straight up. My legs were shaking, and I was just like, just water was pouring out of my eyes. And he was too. And I don't even know how we kept playing. So that was something kind of awesome.
Yeah.
And Toast My Bread and Dust My Rusty Buckle make me laugh very hard. Let's see. Aileen Roginski, Toast My Bread is amazing. The first time I heard it live, I texted Boga to ask where I could buy it. Should we listen to our little surprise here? We're going to play Name That Tune, if I could do this. Hey, how good is the technology person tonight?
Yay.
Right? Let's see. Now will be the real test, though. Ho ho! Can everybody see that?
Oh, yes.
Now let's find out if we can all hear it. We're ready.
I did this last night.
April sent it to me, and here we go.
This is the University of Scranton, alma mater. From 1, 2, 1, 2.
Whoa! That was awesome. That was awesome. Can I send that link to Father Pilares?
You can, but yes, you can send that to him. I want to make. That was my practice run, but you can send it to him. This is what Cheryl did for me. Once I started writing, and after 2006, I think I'd gotten a copy of the alma mater, and I said, I want to write just different arrangements of it, and that just happened to be a trombone quartet. And even though COVID is not a good thing, like I said, good things happen for those who look for good. I just started going through all this music, and I was like, wow, I never recorded it. I never sent it to her. I was going to write a choir version. I was going to write a trombone. I did a trombone duo, trio, and that quartet. And I was trying out my program. You asked me earlier, how did I do that? It's called acapella. So I have to get the acapella pro so I can work with the mixing and mastering. But, so I'm starting to find all this music, and that, like I said, the music behind me is what I've been working on, and it's about 400 tunes. Those are all arrangements and or mostly compositions. And then I have another file cabinet that has other folks' music in it. But I had fun doing that. And you can send it to him, but I'll do it again where I can get the mix and stuff.
Okay. Listen, it's like 8:26. Ladies, you each get one more quick question of your own. And then, this is like everybody online is saying don't stop. Like somebody said, we're here till midnight if you are, but that's not fair to you. But would you be willing maybe to do this again sometime over the summer?
Of course.
Okay.
I'd love to.
This is fun. I love talking to you. Ladies,
thanks.
Final question here.
Okay, so I have one. So I was wondering, because you have mentioned all these places you've been to abroad and how much you enjoy traveling, but I was wondering if you had a favorite place that you were able to perform abroad, and why is that your favorite place?
My favorite place? I've been to many places. I think Australia is just the continent. It reminded me of where I grew up. You have the big city, and then you have the outback. And for me, I didn't have to and with any language barriers, they all spoke English. And shame on me for not learning a new language. And as a matter of fact, someone asked me recently. They said, "Wycliffe, do you have a second language?" I said, "Yes, English." But anyway, and so I've always enjoyed Australia. Went there the first time in Jordan went to band in 89, so it was January of 1990, and where I first heard the instrument, the didgeridoo, and the people there, they were just, I don't know if you know the history about the countries there and the continents, but those were all of the, the bad people. They have this wine called 19 Crimes, and if you committed any one of these 19 crimes, you were sent away from England and the UK, and they sent you to Australia. So that's where all the party people, the so-called bad people, but I just had a great time every time I went. It's a long flight, but I'd have to say, I've been to Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, Adelaide, Brisbane, and recently with James Morrison, another great master musician from there. He has a school down in Mount Gambier near the South Sea. You fly to Melbourne, and then it's about a 2.5 hour, another 7.5 hour drive, another 2 hour and a half, 2 flight. But so if I had to say one place, other than just being at home, I'd say Australia.
Ab, you're muted.
That's very cool. I actually had the same question. But another question I had was, in your bio, you've accomplished so many things between like teaching classes and playing in bands and traveling around the world. Is there anything that you haven't accomplished yet that's like on your bucket list that you want to do?
Well, there's some things I wanted to do that I don't want to do anymore because I'm older now. So bungee jumping, no. I ride my motorcycle now. All I want to do now is I want to publish all the music that I've written. A lot of the music that I've done, especially the choral pieces at Scranton, University of Scranton, it's just been like a one-off performance. And I archive everything. There are very few performances that I don't have. So when the folks brought up the story, the story was very long. I've since condensed it. I want to do that. I want to record it. I want to get a commercial recording of the music. That incident that I had with an orchestra conductor who said, well, we want you to bring one of your jazz tunes and we'll have our arranger to arrange it. So, well, I can arrange for orchestra. Yeah, just bring it. And anyway, I'm thankful to Cheryl for giving me the opportunity to write something, to compose, to arrange something I'd never done before. So the one thing I haven't on my bucket list, I want to publish all of my music, and I want to make it available to everyone. That question has come across sometimes. What do you think about Spotify? What do you think about Pandora? And because we get a percentage of pennies on the dollar, and I look at it this way, yeah, that happens. You're not going to get rich. But the other thing is, people have the opportunity to hear your music that would never hear it. It's like when Ken Burns came out with the series on jazz, and Jeff Ward did that book, Jazz, a 10 DVD set. I was on the road when it came out, and I remember going to Iowa. We were in these rural places, and people, they didn't hear jazz. We did Wednesday night. It was a church night, so I arranged a bunch of hymns and spirituals, and we played a concert. And this nice elderly lady came up to me. She said, son, I do not like jazz music, but I love what you all are playing. And I just said, thank you, ma'am. And, we were playing jazz, but then, people are kind of, can sometimes be ignorant about things that they don't know and that they haven't been exposed to. And then we had to go visit 4 cities, Pella, Iowa, Pella, Decorah, Iowa City, and some other city, twice within 3 years. We went back the second time, and this was after the series had come out. And everybody was bashing it, jazz writers and jazz musicians. They didn't do this and they didn't do that. I'm like, wait a minute. So we're in, I think it was either Pella or Decorah, and at the library where we were going to give a performance, sextet representing Lincoln Center's, Jazz Lincoln Center's education department. And in the library, they didn't have a modern printer. They still had the printer. I don't know if you guys have seen the thing. I don't know what it's called. When Boba comes back on, she can tell us that thing that you turn, and it has the blue paper on it, and it makes prints. I forget what you call it. Anyway, they had that. And I was like, wow, man, here we are in another one of these cities, and we're going to do a lecture demonstration, and it's going to be it was in January, after the series had come out. And we did a performance, and after the performance, the folks came and said, wow, I really appreciate what you all were doing. You all played the blues, and you did this, and they had a much greater appreciation of our performance than before, simply because they saw that on television. It wasn't made for the jazz musicians. It was made for the public, the people that wouldn't go to hear jazz. There was no Tower Records in that store, and I said, so then I go on the cruise, the jazz cruise, and the musicians is bam, bam, they're beating down Winton, beating down Ken Burns. And I don't agree with everything Winton says, but if you're going to debate with him, you better prepare. That's all I'm going to say. And then they said, well, they didn't cover this, they didn't cover that. And so we're having a panel on the cruise, and I raised my hand and said to the musicians, how do you all feel about the Ken Burns Jazz Series? No one wanted to answer the question. 8 panelists. And it finally got to Randy Sankey or someone. They didn't want to touch it. But, I hear them on the ship and, and at the bar or something, and they're bashing. Well, Wycliffe, what do you think? I said, I think it was not made for us. I said, it was made for the public, and it showed jazz and jazz musicians in a great light. So many movies and things our story has been told, and we're portrayed and presented in such a negative light. And And if Ken Burns didn't cover something, he raised $30+ million to do it. I think we should, whoever wants to cover what he didn't cover, get into the entrepreneurial spirit, raise your money, go tell the story he didn't tell. I sat next.
The other thing about that everybody forgets, the impact of that series on music education and jazz education is immeasurable. I mean, ask my son. I remember I had an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old that didn't, I mean, he used to have ants in his pants. He was riveted. I mean, could not, okay, we gotta move. I'm gonna ask everybody who joined us tonight to immediately you're gonna log off, and you're going to go and you're going to buy, you're going to go on Amazon, you're going to go on CD Baby, or you're going to go on iTunes or wherever you buy music. Don't steal music. We're in the time of a pandemic, people, okay? Musicians have no work. I know because my genetic material is sitting in New York in an apartment with zero income, okay? So go and buy some music tonight if you are somebody who still is working. Here is Wycliffe Gordon and his International All-Stars. I Give You Love. Get two, get one for yourself and get one for somebody you love and surprise them. While they're stuck homebound, they'll get a little package in the mail. It'll be an awesome thing. Band directors. There are plenty of his charts that, while many of them were recorded by professional groups, are very well suited to high school and college bands, and certainly check them out. And if you're a band director and you have any questions about, ranges or doability on any of those, all you need to do is give me a call, because it's reversed. That's the score, but I don't know how to change that camera so you could read it. But these are all Wycliffe Gordon scores here. I'm happy to talk you through ranges, difficulty levels on any of them. And they're exceptionally well put together. It's great paper. And finally, I'm going to bring this full circle before we say goodnight. And I'm going to, obviously, because it is so serious, within these gates of mine, all of that conversation was just wonderful. But I have a funny story related to preparation for the first performance of that piece for Jazzmobile. And I don't know if you even remember. So during a break in the rehearsal of the big band for that piece, that year there was an earthquake in New York City. And it shook the building they were in. And it was on the break in the rehearsal. So they all evacuated. But there was a blonde trumpet player who was in the bathroom and had no idea that there was an earthquake. He was oblivious. And he came back out and everybody was gone. And he was like, where'd everybody go? And Wycliffe called me that night to say, oh my God, I am so sorry. I'm outside and I'm saying, where's the blonde trumpet player? Where's the blonde trumpet? Well, I'm sure he's out, but he was in the building the whole time and we were supposed to get out because he was in the bathroom and he came out, everybody was gone. So he just sat and he worked on his part. So I thought that was a nice little story to close with. Abigail, Nicole, thank you so much. Everybody in the listening audience, please put a comment there thanking Abby and Nick. Wycliffe, I love you. We're going to do this again. And everybody have a great night. Still to come in the series, we have Jeff Carnow, the assistant principal trumpet of the Philadelphia Orchestra. We have Ricky Riccardi from Louis Armstrong House and Museum. We have Kenny Rampton, lead trumpeter from the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, is going to talk about music as a healing art. Jeff Carnow is going to talk to us about humor and music. We've got a lot of stuff still to come. So we hope that you'll keep checking our website. It's a different day each weekend. And we hope you'll join us again. And I cannot wait till we can have Wycliffe back in person. Thank you, everybody. Alma mater ours always. And the Dr. Gordon. How did it feel the first time anybody called you Dr. Gordon?
Yes.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Bye-bye.